You are now listening to part 2 of the Dr. Amy Wecker Beyond Biohacking Brothers podcast, brought to you by the Medical Health Institute.
But you said something interesting, that there's a gap in conventional medicine, right? And specifically as it regards to women's health, specifically HRT.
HRT it's hormone replacement therapy, meaning that you are not making your hormones anymore, and so they have to be replaced. When we get older and we lose our hormones, we don't feel well, and the only thing really that can make us feel better is to replace those hormones, and instead women get given antidepressants and birth control pills, and what you really need is bioidentical hormone replacement therapy.
Women's health industry is massively underserved, and it's because of this lack of understanding, and their quality of life significantly declines really fast once this, hormonal cascade begins to go down.
Basically, and it doesn't mean that having no testosterone is normal. No, what that means is that nobody has been concerned about women's health or women's sexuality at all. And so nobody has really looked into how much testosterone women are supposed to have, and then they just give you the lower limit of normal as basically 0, which is ridiculous, but that is just evidence of how little people care about women's health.
What are some of your specific strategies in your intake, and what are the symptomatology that you look for, and how do you sort of, put together an individualized care for women in regarding HRT?
Well, so
I know that was a lot to unpack.
Right, yeah. So
that was a hell mouthful.
everyone is different. But basically, if you're coming to see me, you're not feeling great, because if you feel amazing, there's really no need to come see me. Right. So everyone is different. So basically, I just go through, I ask women, the first thing I ask when I start my consults, every consult, I say, I have read all of your forms, but I want to hear from you the things that you think are important. So you tell me whatever it is that you really want me to know. And then when you're done, I'll ask you specific questions to fill in the blanks, and we'll go from there. And then I give the women as much time as they need to talk. And it's so crazy, because I feel like a lot of women, nobody really listens to us. And I feel like a lot of my patients, I feel like no one has really listened to what they've had to say for a long time.
And I got to give you kudos to that, because you're almost a psychologist at this point, because as you said, you have to listen to them, truly listen to them, right?
Yeah. So I truly listen.
And just to that point, the average medical appointment is less than 15 minutes.
Yeah, 10 to 15
yes.
minutes.
Right? 10 to 15. That is not enough for a guy who is super simple, right?
Yeah,
but
no.
for a woman, it becomes even more
Right.
complex. Your consultations are an hour long, because it's a very investigative sort of process.
For that initial consult, you need an hour, because you need time to really understand what's going on. So I let my patients just talk and just tell me whatever it is and usually they will tell me a story. Oh, it's been 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years that I haven't been feeling well, and I listen to what they say. And so at the beginning, and I listen to all the symptoms, and then whatever isn't covered, I'll ask about. So we talk about energy, sleep, sex drive, hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, brain fog, all kinds of stuff. I delve into the lifestyle, diet, exercise, and then we take a look at the labs, and we really talk about everything. And then we do come up with an individualized plan, because not everybody needs every single hormone. And I would consider a full hormone replacement to be 6 hormones. So E2, E3, progesterone, and then pregnenolone, DHEA, testosterone. Not everybody.
Possibly you have thyroid issues, so that makes
Right.
it 7 now.
Well, right. Well, so sex hormones, right? So not everybody needs all 6 sex hormones, but some people do. So again, it's a combination of the symptoms and the labs. And then, yes, of course, we talk about the thyroid. We come up with a supplement plan. We look at different vitamin levels, and it's
Food for the thyroid.
It's a very comprehensive thing.
Go ahead, Miguel.
And I want to add to, this is why I feel it's so important that, some down in our path, we realize we need to have a women's department with female wellness specialists handled by a professional medical doctor. And in the male granted, plus minus, with the exception, there's a couple males that you do and a couple females that Rudy does. But I feel that it's so important for you to be able to connect
and the
at
feedback,
a personal
and the
level
feedback has
with
been
a
amazing.
female, with what they're actually experiencing, right? Like all the symptoms they may be experiencing, because you can relate. It's very different to understand textbook and medically than to be able to not only understand that, but to relate. Yeah. It's almost like reading the manual of how to drive, but then you know how to actually drive, right?
And the feedback has been amazing, to when women are treated by women, they feel so much more comfortable opening up because it's kind of hard. I mean, to talk about sexual, problems that you're having, to a man, and you don't know him, and with a woman, it's kind of like you ladies have girl talk, so
it's definitely a lot of girl talk.
We don't know how to do girl talk, right? So I mean, that's why we decided to kind of divide the departments, and the results have been nothing but amazing, and the feedback on your treatment has been nothing but amazing as well. But I wanted to get in addition to HRT, because you mentioned some vitamins, minerals, and stuff like that. So what are, there are a number of lifestyle factors that play a critical role in optimizing women's health, not just HRT, because as we've mentioned so many times before, no true HRT plan can be truly successful without some kind of lifestyle intervention, some change. And I know that you're very good at, on the guy side, we're a little more aggressive, but you have this awesome strategy where you take people in baby steps, right? So, what is your view on women's nutrition, exercise, stress management, sleep, and what are some of the most important sort of lifestyle changes that can support hormonal health and overall longevity?
All right. Well, lifestyle is critical. So, and honestly, my patients that do the best are women who already are taking really good care of themselves. They just have some hormone decline. You give them some hormones and they feel amazing, because the lifestyle stuff is important. Eating a healthy diet is important. And, not everyone is going to do the same on every diet. I mean, my personal rule of thumb is everything in moderation except for gluten. No gluten. Yeah. That's a big thing. Gluten, it is. It's super inflammatory. And I just think,
it's in everything.
It's in a lot of things.
Especially in restaurants.
And so you really need to get the gluten out. And beyond that, though, fasting is good, but women can overfast. You don't want to fast too much. So you've got to fast, but not overdo it. Exercise, of course, is important. Mm-hmm. It's critically important because a lot of people want to lose weight. And I'm not against weight loss drugs at all, but I think lifestyle has to really be the cornerstone of it. Yeah. And sleep is important. And for women, I mean, when our progesterone drops, we stop sleeping. I mean, I worked in the hospital for many years, a lot. And I was always so tired, and I would get into bed and I would just immediately fall asleep. I could sleep anytime, anywhere. I mean, that's what happens when you're working in the hospital 60 to 80 hours a week. And then in my mid 40s, all of a sudden I just stopped sleeping and I would just be awake sweating all night. Yeah. So, I mean, I had my hormones checked. My progesterone had dropped almost to zero. I started taking progesterone and I could sleep again, and I was normal temperature and dry. And so again, this gets chalked up to like, oh, you're just crazy. But actually, no, it's a progesterone deficiency. And for whatever reason, testosterone is the first hormone that we lose. And probably because if you go back to ancient times when we were having all these children, once you start having your 15 children, it's probably not in your best interest to go looking around for someone new to have sex with. Yeah. So the testosterone drops, and then later on we lose our progesterone, and then our estrogen is the last thing to go. So there are going to be several years where your estrogen levels are more or less okay and you're cycling pretty normally, but you're missing your progesterone. And so what happens then is you go to your doctor and you're like, I'm not sleeping, I don't feel well, I'm having night sweats. Yeah. And they say, well, you're having your period, you're not in menopause, you're fine. Again, no, I'm not fine, you're fine. I'm not fine, you're fine. And nobody's really looked at the labs. Nobody's checked the hormones on the right day to see that the progesterone is really low. And it's such a simple fix.
Yeah. And to that point, like, once your sleep goes, I mean, the cascade of deleterious effects in not only biological effects, right, but like your quality of life. I mean, everything gets affected. But, I just wanted to mention for the viewers to know, like, and I see this in labs all the time with women that are in menopause. I mean, and you just, talked about testosterone. Testosterone goes to literally zero. Like I see free testosterone and it's 0.xyz. And the way that I like to explain it, 0.xyz is still 0. Right. And that's why, testosterone therapy for women is so important in terms of getting back their that energy, right? Their libido with their husbands. And when we talk about libido, we're not talking about promiscuity, right? We're talking about intimacy with your partner, which is such an important, crucial part of life.
Yes, because it really affects your marriage. I have women telling me, oh, I love my husband. I'm happily married for 30 years, but I just have no desire. I have vaginal dryness. It's uncomfortable sometimes. I do it because he wants it. I force myself to do it, but I'm not enjoying it. But that kind of stuff can really take a toll on the marriage because honestly, the sex is the glue. And having good sex is not enough, of course, to have a happy relationship, but you do have to have it in there. Yeah. It is the glue. And
so you keep the intimacy alive.
You have to keep the intimacy alive. And again, like, women try to chalk it up to all these different things. And of course, female sexuality is very, very, very complicated. But part of it is having your hormones in balance. That's a big part of it.
And I think part of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a woman, but this is what I've heard. That, part of a woman's mood and just like her availability, if you want to call it that, is her feeling sexy, right? And so when women go through menopause, not only are they having these massive internal changes, but their bodies begin to change. Like that's one of the things that I often hear from women is like, I've always been fit. I've always felt great. My clothes are always fitting nice. And now it's just like nothing fits. I feel like all this stuff. And that really begins to take a toll on self-esteem. Yes. And then it just kind of pours over all the areas in her life.
Yes, because the most powerful sex organ is the brain. Yeah. And if you don't feel sexy, you're not going to want to have sex. And you can think your husband is the greatest man in the whole world and super attractive and a wonderful person. But if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it.
Yeah. And that can take a toll.
Do you mind, because I saw how you broke down the lifestyle, the diet, the hormones, right? Certain supplements to nourish those hormones because everything you consume sucks up minerals, vitamins, and antioxidants out of your body. But do you mind touching really fast on fasting for women? Because most women fast wrong and actually hurt the reproductive system because as far as I understand, you have to fast differently in your luteal phase than your... Yes, and then your follicular phase.
So all of that is controversial, and I'm not totally convinced, actually. I'm not totally convinced that you have to really alter your fasting throughout your cycle. I mean, maybe it's beneficial, but it's also pretty complicated. I would just say this. I think that if you're a younger woman, you can pretty much do whatever kind of fasting you want to do, and it is more or less going to be okay. But as you get older, I think you have to be careful of fasting too much. I think it's easy to gain weight as your hormones decline, and then everybody becomes weight obsessed. But I think when people in general talk about losing weight, they say I want to lose weight, but what they really mean is I want to lose fat. I want to lose fat and maintain my muscles, maintain my bones, maintain all of my lean body mass. But people don't say that, and they're not necessarily conscious of that. But of course,
actually, they say I want to lose weight, but they're not recognizing what we're really talking about is fat here. You don't want to lose any muscle because you'll drop your basal metabolic rate.
Yes, and they also mean that they want to look a certain way, that they want to have like a body composition to where they look fantastic. And if they look phenomenal, they're probably not really that concerned about the number on the scale as long as they feel like they look the way that they want to look.
And their clothes are fitting right.
Yes, exactly. So people say they want to lose weight, but that's not really what they mean, right?
Yes.
And so I think like if you overfast, you can really obsess about your weight and you can overfast. You have to be careful because you really, really need to maintain all of your muscles and actually work to build your muscles because muscles are going to protect you as you age. That's your armor. They keep you looking good and they also keep you strong. If you're 80 and you fall, the difference between breaking a hip and not breaking a hip is going to be the amount of muscle that you have on your body that's going to basically protect you. And so I think, you can't be totally fixated on this number on the scale and start fasting too much. And of course, you don't want to you don't want to eat too much and have diabetes. So I think for women, somewhere in the ballpark of around 14 hours is reasonable. And if you want to do a longer fast here or there, I think it's totally fine. Like I do the Prolons, I think it's great. But like as a woman, I don't think you want to eat like one meal a day. And some of these more extreme forms of fasting, it's not great for us.
Right. Well, I think that the musculoskeletal system, most people, because yes, it's great for your bones, in which your bone is actually an organ system that releases stem cells, all these things. But more than anything, insulin is literally glucose, 70 to 90% of it is absorbed and regulated by your muscles. So the more muscle you pack, the more insulin sensitive you will be.
And we're not talking about bodybuilding muscles.
Right. We're just talking about maintaining muscle mass to help you regulate when you do have that cheesecake. Your body knows how to bounce back faster. And especially women, it's very hard to pack on muscle because you guys are making 1/10 of the testosterone we're making.
Ever stop to think how much screens and artificial light are affecting your well-being?
Did you know that staring at screens can not only ruin your eyesight, but more importantly, significantly decrease the production of your natural sleep hormone called melatonin? This can lead to insomnia, chronic fatigue, and even weight gain.
Here at MHI, we're passionate about your well-being, and that's why we're excited to introduce to you Viva Rays and Block Blue Lights. Viva Rays feature adjustable lenses to protect you from any light spectrum, and together with Block Blue light bulbs, you'll safeguard your eyes and protect your sleep, which is one of the most important pillars of your health.
Visit the MHI Recommends section of our website to get your discount to Viva Rays and Block Blue light bulbs, so you can start sleeping soundly tonight. For now, stay healthy,
And God bless.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you, just for the viewers, because, and here's what I mean. So we've seen this catastrophic incidence in our population of young men and low T, right? Which is really, really scary. We know what's causing this, which is endocrine disrupting chemicals that we're massively being exposed to and nutrient deficiencies. I mean, there's a load of other things, but these two are sort of like the cardinal things that are causing this effect. And so we're seeing this generation of young men with low T. I mean, I read an insane statistic the other day where we're seeing the rise in girls having, coming to maturity, getting their period under 9 has more than tripled, right? And so we know this is happening.
Well, not only that, the United States has the youngest early for puberty development in females.
Yeah. So
yes, in the world. I was looking that up.
It's crazy.
Because of all the xenoestrogens and all the EDCs, they're developing much faster than any other country.
So, the question is, we're seeing, just like we're seeing low T earlier in men, we're also seeing perimenopausal effects in younger and younger women. So, what would be your advice today? Like, what should some women look for in terms of symptomatology as to, hey, something is not right, let me get checked out? And what are some of the symptoms that people should look for?
Well, I think that the first thing that happens is that you start to feel tired. You lose your sex drive. Those would be the first things
to go.
And yes, and then the sleep gets disrupted and you start to either sweat at night or just to feel hot at night. Those are probably really the earliest things.
Right.
Because estrogen is the last thing to go. So even if you are going to go...
Wait, estrogen is the last one. So it's testosterone, then it's progesterone, and then estrogen.
Yeah, for the most part.
Testosterone, sex drive, energy, progesterone, sleep. And night sweats, hot flashes, and estrogen would be related to?
So without estrogen, you can have brain fog, you get dry skin, dry hair, vaginal dryness.
That's where that comes from.
And then, of course, you actually don't get your period anymore.
Yeah.
Because of the estrogen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So estrogen is proliferative and progesterone is anti-proliferative. So estrogen will build up your uterine lining and then so without the estrogen you're not going to build up the
uterus
lining
procreation.
And then the balance of the estrogen and progesterone and the interplay throughout the month will lead to you building it up and then having your period, sloughing it off.
Now, having said that, I want to go back to this point that you as a doctor, VIP, were super dismissed, even though you knew that there was something wrong. So we get a ton of labs from urologists, endocrinologists, OBGYNs, right? Gynecologists. And as you've seen, they're so incomplete. It's like this basic panel that really tells you nothing. So, what is the importance? Because your lab is some of the most extensive lab that we do for sure. So what was your thought process with that? And kind of tell the audience, what is the importance of getting an adequate panel when looking at optimization?
Right. Well, one of the big things is well, because you want to really know what's going on. Like, I'll tell you something, I still practice conventional medicine. I'm still an infectious diseases specialist, and I actually run an HIV treatment and prevention clinic in South Beach where I live, and it's great. And so I get all these patients from all over the place, and and I do practice some functional medicine there. And one of the biggest things I notice is that nobody gets their vitamin D checked. And it's crazy because I really don't consider vitamin D to be functional medicine. Like, and again, we do order a lot of labs. They're all from Quest and LabCorp. We don't really use specialty labs. It's very conventional functional medicine. We're not doing any kind of crazy like out there treatments. And so, but I get patients all the time, and this is Miami, that have a vitamin D level of 15, 17, and then of course at that level you're going to feel really tired. It's going to have negative effects on your immune system, all kinds of stuff. And I've become obsessed with vitamin D. So then, of course, I replace it, and you take somebody from like 20 to 80, they start to feel amazing. And these are, healthy young people. These are not menopausal women. These are, young people. And it's just crazy. And my colleagues tease me about it. They're like, oh, you and your vitamin D. I'm like, how could you not check this? And so with the hormones also, like, again, these are basic standard labs, but you have to check them on days 19 to 21 if you're cycling, because that is when you have a relative peak of estrogen and progesterone. And those are kind of like in those days, that's how we know how to really interpret the labs. If you get the labs on some random day and you don't know when it is, I mean, everybody is going to have an estrogen or a progesterone super low at some point in the cycle. And if you check on that day, it doesn't mean that they have a deficiency. It just means that you checked on the wrong day. And so if you don't know when they were checked, I mean, women cycle, we all know this, right? So the day that you check the labs is really important. And you also want to check all of the hormones. You want to get a testosterone and a free testosterone. You want the DHEA, you want the pregnenolone. Like, you really want to understand what is going on with someone so you can properly take care of them. And again, we don't generally use specialty labs.
And so for clarity, for women, the message is you like to check it, between day 19
to 21. That's
21,
a standard,
ideally.
That's like an industry standard thing. Like, it's not just me.
So just day number one, I mean, the day that you begin to spot, right? Counts as day number one, and then you would count between 19, 20, 21 days. That's the ideal time to kind of check your baseline hormones.
Yes. And if you're not getting your period, you check them anytime you want.
I just about touching on the vitamin D. I actually want to emphasize on that because as a medical doctor, I think maybe you agree to this, and that it's really a hormone. And the reason why I say it's a hormone, well, let's look at what a gland does. A thyroid produces thyroid hormones, right? Your pituitary produces growth hormone. Your skin produces, when it converts into the liver, 25-hydroxy vitamin D. And we literally have in every single cell in our bodies inside the nucleus a vitamin D receptor. And for the production and conversion of vitamin D into its active form, which is 25-hydroxy vitamin D, it needs to be processed by liver. When it gets processed, that's when it acts more like a hormone in your body because it regulates over 2,000 different physiological and biological functions in your body, right?
No, I agree. It is a hormone. And in case anyone is wondering why everyone is vitamin D deficient, let me just tell you quickly. So if you think about it, right, because again, we're here in Miami, we have a lot of sun. And everyone is vitamin D deficient. And why is that? Because throughout most of human history, we were outside all of the time. We were farmers, okay? And before we were farmers, we were hunter-gatherers. We were living our lives outside. There was no inside. Maybe you had a hut to sleep in, but there was really no inside. Everyone was outdoors all day long doing labor. And so, yes, we get our vitamin D from the sun, but it's that kind of sun exposure. And then you have the last 300 years or so where we're just inside and just going outside, going to the beach for a couple of hours on the weekend or something. It's just not enough. And that's why we all have to supplement with vitamin D.
And you said something interesting because you threw out some numbers. And it's funny.
Wait, I want to geek out for a second for you. Another reason, if you look it up, is because what carries vitamin D cholecalciferol is through 7-dehydrocholesterol. It's like a carrier for it. So these receptors that help us convert this vitamin D, as we get older, we have less of them. So if I grab Amy at 50, Amy at 20, put you under the same exact time and sun exposure, that younger self is going to absorb more vitamin D than the older self.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Look that up.
I wanted to kind of circle back onto this one because you said that they call you a geek for this vitamin D thing, which is important. and then you throw out a number. So, that's another typical sort of like when I get someone in the intake, they're like, hey, I'm not feeling well. I went to my doctor and they told me that all my numbers were fine. So I always tell them, look, there is a concept of lab interpretation, right? So it's like the Bible. It depends who reads it, right?
Yes.
You can interpret it in so many different ways. So, what is like your view on that? Because so many women come to us like, hey, my OBGYN told me that my hormones are fine. I just want this weight loss drug. And it's like, let's re-examine this.
Well, so with the vitamin D, if you look at the standard labs, they give you a range of 30 to 100 as normal, but actually it's 60 to 100. So if you are 30, you are going to come back as, normal, but actually it's not normal. You have a deficiency. It should be 60 to 100. So if you look at the hormone labs, interestingly, for testosterone, actually the lower limit of normal is like 4 or like 0 or like,
0 to 4.
Because
it's literally 0
yeah,
to 4.
because basically, and it doesn't mean that having no testosterone is normal. No, what that means is that nobody has been concerned about women's health or women's sexuality at all. And so nobody has really looked into like how much testosterone women are supposed to have. And then they just give you the lower limit of normal as like basically 0, which is ridiculous. But that is just evidence of how little people care about women's health.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Totally
that's an interesting point. So,
but that's where we have people like you making awareness about this.
And I want to emphasize and honor. I mean, not only are you a practitioner that has gone through the training on how to interpret this properly from an optimization perspective, because again, there's a difference between being 40 and not dying, which is what conventional medicine is sort of the system is engineered to be. Like, hey, we just want to make sure you don't die. But there's a big difference in being a 40-year-old woman and thriving, right? And being your best self and being the best mother that you can be and the best, whether you're an entrepreneur or you just want to be an amazing wife. I mean, you need to be optimized or else you are going to lag. So with that said, looking ahead, and my point to that was that you're a practitioner that's in the trenches. You're not just textbook smart, which you are a geek, but you're also in the trenches dealing with these women and really, really optimizing, and your results have been amazing. So I just want to honor you for that.
For real.
Thank you.
And that you are a forever geek that will continue to learn, right? Because we continue to go every year to these conferences and we keep discovering more and more and more. And I think in the next 5 years with AI, we're going to look back and be like, wow, you get me? We're going to have like a 15, 20 year progression in the next 5 years. Yeah. And I just want to recognize that, unfortunately, there's a lot of doctors that don't stay updated, or, they go every 2 or 3 years. You're going every single year. Yeah. You're staying up to date with the current status of what's going on in medicine. And I think that that's the most important and valuable tool for a female that's going to come to see a doctor, that their doctor themselves is out there in the trenches looking at what's the next thing.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a great point, because the statistics show that 90% of doctors don't open a book, meaning they don't continue their education after they graduate. And you are a complete antithesis of that, where you're going every year, you're reading books, you're putting yourself through the process.
So we do, all doctors do continuing education. We have to, it's required. So we do.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm obsessed with
let me
A4M.
correct that so you understand. What he meant is a general medicine, insurance-based medicine. Once they graduate, they maintain what the credits they need to do per year, but they don't do any training outside of that, like curriculums like going to the A4M alternative is what I mean.
Yes.
Optimization,
yes.
optimization
They don't look at that.
Yes. No, I'm obsessed. I want to know what's going on. So
we
can witness that. It's totally true.
I do. I probably go to take 3 or 4 courses per year. I'm totally into it.
And I want to just two more questions for the sake of time. So we are very big, and you touch a little bit about some of ancestral living strategies, which we're big on. But the other really important thing that we emphasize on is syntax. And what I mean is that as it regards to peptides, right? Because you love peptides. Peptides are amazing. And you've seen some magnificent results with them. So what is your decision and your thought process and, when to start someone on a peptide?
So there's different peptides for different things, but what I'm assuming you're referring to basically are the growth hormone releasing agents,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
Performance enhancing peptides, right? Because if you're like injured and you need a repair peptide, I mean, it really has nothing to do with age. It basically is like for injury repair, let's say. So with
I would say you were talking about performance.
Performance.
And longevity, because you're not going to get somebody in longevity when they're a walking, taking inflammatory time bomb.
So
you know?
so in terms of the performance enhancing peptides, I mean, I think a good time to start probably is around 40-ish. And so you don't want to start too young because basically these are growth hormone releasing agents. And so when you still are making a lot of your own natural growth hormone, you really don't want to interfere with that process. So I'm not saying you can't take it before 40, but I mean, sometimes I get patients in their early 30s that want to take them, like really fit people, but I do kind of try to dissuade them because I say at that point, at 33, you still have pretty good levels of growth hormone. Just enjoy your own growth hormone for now. You can take it when you get older because you do want to think about longevity, and you don't necessarily want to use everything up and peak at 37 and then it's all downhill. So and also I think it's important to get the background optimized. So at my first visit, I generally don't give peptides unless somebody is injured and they need a repair peptide, something like that I would do. But in terms of the performance enhancing peptides, I like to get things kind of under control to get the things optimized in terms of hormones. And if something needs to be corrected metabolically, so you can set the stage for a good foundation to then add the peptides later. But I will add them like at this second or third visit. And I would say like around 40 is a good time to start.
We like to say it's the equivalence of planting a mango tree in downtown Miami or Amazon. Which one do you think you're going to want to eat?
Yeah.
The one in the Amazon, because the soil, it has a proper foundational principles of what it needs in order to give you a nutritiously dense fruit. Same thing is our biochemistry. You have to nourish it and give it all the components it needs. So when you give it that signaling agent, there's a really high likelihood that you're going to have a positive result to it. Right.
Yeah. And so, finalizing, like, what excites you most about the future of women's health, particularly with the advancements of HRT, hormone research, and overall health optimization? I mean, there are so many emerging trends and breakthroughs that I think it can revolutionize the way that we approach women's health and wellness in the coming years. So what excites you the most?
Yeah, I think just that there is a lot more acceptance now of all these different therapies, and that's exciting. I think there has been a couple of articles recently in very mainstream publications saying that hormones are important. And so I think the more resources that get allocated to research, the more it becomes accepted, the better chance we have of developing new things and being able to become healthier as we go forward. I mean, I feel like this is a kind of an exciting time to be getting older because we have a lot of different things available to us. And as we keep on doing more research and going forward, hopefully we can just continue to get healthier and healthier as we age instead of declining.
I think a big landmark, we interviewed Shalin. Am I saying that right? Shalin, the CEO from Kaiser Trek, which is the oral testosterone, and now they're doing
FDA approved.
They're doing pilot studies to eventually get FDA approved studies on using oral testosterone for women. But we finally have a drug that's FDA approved.
Oh,
now
the Jatenzo.
Yeah. Well, no, not Jatenzo. That was an older one. There's a new one. Kaiser
the
Trek,
Jatenzo is a nasal spray that you have to do 3 times a day. People would bleed. It would dry your nose. It was uncomfortable.
The levels weren't really optimized. Whereas Kaiser Trek's like it'll really boost your total T around 1,000, but for men. But
3 to 4x your free testosterone. Their studies show 3 to 4x.
So
improvement in free T, which is the phenomenal thing. I always tell people, who cares about the total?
So you guys are more updated than I am.
They're doing a pilot study for women. So, we'll keep you up to date and we'll introduce you to Charlene. So, with that said, Dr. Wecker, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, this was really exciting. I think, is there anything that we left out
before we close
that you want to tell the viewers?
Just don't give up on yourself. If you're not feeling well, find a doctor. You could come see me, but it doesn't have to be me. Right. Just get evaluated. Don't give up on yourself. There is always a brighter future ahead if you choose to seek it out.
Yeah, and I always say that. Well said. And we always that's kind of like our fundamental message to our patients is, hey, this is no commitment. The best advice that I can give any woman or man in this world, in this day and age, from 30 and above, get your labs done. Get proper labs. It doesn't have to be through Dr. Wecker, but find a practitioner that is educated, that is researched, and is going to interpret these labs from an optimization perspective. We don't want you to just not die. We want you to thrive. Right. So
before you close out, I want to leave a teaser out there because this was so good that we need to have you again.
Yes.
So if there were another subject that you would talk about, what do you think would be the next subject we should talk about?
Well, you know, I work for you guys, so you definitely could have me back.
I know, but just what do you think is so important to talk about? So we keep this because we talked about doing and launching these Q&As, which were on the works. So there's a lot going on. But I realize this is another way of doing Q&A. So what do you think is the next thing we should talk about that is
for women's health specifically? Yeah.
Well, another thing we could talk about is the thyroid.
Yes.
You
Thyroid.
know,
You are a master.
You're a specialist.
That's how you got in, basically.
And you suffered your own battles with thyroid. So, you know, with that said.
All right. Well, and there you go. Next one is on thyroid, right? All right.
Okay.
Let's go, baby.
Guys and gals, we hope that. Go ahead.
Wait, and I do have one last thing to say is that if you do take really good care of yourself, honestly, it just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
I am not dreading turning 50 at all. I dreaded turning 40, but my 40s have been amazing, and I'm excited to see what the 50s hold.
Yeah, baby.
So it can just keep getting better.
I mean, Dr. Wecker does marathons and super long rides with her partner, and I mean, it's, you know, she is
Can't keep up.
She's a high performer for sure at her 50s. So with that said, you know, we hope that this interview has been insightful and you've gotten a lot of tools. If you have any questions about anything that you heard today in the interview, please feel free to call us and we'll point you in the right direction.
Like, share, and follow this video and ask us questions of anything you would like to talk about in the future, please.
Yes. And until then, we hope you stay healthy.
And God bless.